All right, so today we're going to work on a couple things to get the Zenith Cruiser ready for cold weather. One of the things we're going to work on is what I call a cold weather kit. My Zenith 750 Cruiser here is powered by a Corvair conversion engine, and it is an air-cooled flat 6. It has an oil cooler here on the back. Air flows through the inlet in the cowl here, and through the fins on the cylinders and the fins on the head, and then through this oil cooler here on the back to keep everything cool. So the oil cooler works great. The hottest temperature I've ever seen on the oil is 215, 220 or so on a 96, 98 degree day. But in the winter, it provides really too much cooling. So the temperatures only get to about 160 degrees, which is too low. Because the piston in the cylinder is not a perfect seal, when you have combustion in the cylinders, a byproduct of combustion is water. It pushes that moisture into the crankcase. And if your oil temperatures aren't at least 180 to 200 degrees, that moisture can actually get trapped in the oil and never gets evaporated out of there. So having proper oil temperatures is key. When I first built this airplane and was doing phase 1 testing, all I would do is use a piece of 3M foil tape over part of the oil cooler in the front, and that would do the trick. It would raise the oil temperatures up 20, 30 degrees in the cold weather, but it's kind of a pain because around here we get wild swings in temperature. Sometimes you'll have a 30-degree day, and then the next day will be 50, 60 degrees, and then you need to peel the tape off. Or even in the same day, really, you could have 30 degrees in the morning, and then in the afternoon it could be 60, 70 degrees. So you fly somewhere, and then you need to peel that off before you fly back. So I want to make something that's a little bit more convenient, and I don't have to carry pieces of tape with me and try to peel that off and put it on and off during pre-flight. So this is the cold weather kit I've come up with. It's made entirely out of scrap metal I had sitting around. Just some scrap aluminum and 2 pieces of piano hinge left over from the airplane build itself. And so all this does is bolt to the back of the oil cooler, pull a hinge pin down and lift it up, and this will stay attached to the oil cooler, and then this comes out. So you don't lose the pins, they go back into the plate and they stay retained, and then this is pretty easy to keep in the hangar in the summer or keep in the plane in the winter. So I've got the winterization kit installed here, and you can see all it really does is block airflow through the oil cooler, and that gives us higher oil temperatures in the winter, which we need. One of the other things I had to do was bend the hinge pins, the retaining clip portion of it. This one here was hitting the oil cooler hose and rubbing, and I didn't like that, so I just rebent it into a tighter shape. And to install it and remove it, all you got to do is kind of flip it around, and then you can remove it. I painted the flap / handle of the Blockoff plate, winter kit, whatever you want to call it, painted red for visibility during pre-flight, and I've got it clamped up here in this Peen marking machine. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mark it with some instructions. Ordinarily you could just use a labeling machine, but I've got this, and this is going to put a nice permanent mark through a series of basically like center punches. So let's go ahead and mark it. And not the best job this thing's ever done, simply because the aluminum's got some flex to it. But otherwise, it's readable, it's permanent, and it'll work. All right, so the last piece for winter prep are some cowl plugs. These are 3D printed ABS, so they should handle the heat and UV exposure just fine. This is kind of the third iteration of my design. All it is has a kind of a spring clip on the back here and just snaps in place. I'll put a lanyard on here and tether both sides together, as well as the intake plug down here, which probably hard to see because there's no light, but it's basically just kind of a old school bathtub stopper look. But as I said, it's the third version of my design. The original design I had planned for kind of something similar to the bathtub stopper with an O-ring in this groove. This design really didn't work all that well because it didn't nest in there snugly enough. Then the alternator pulley kind of interfered with it also, so I'd have to make it thinner and have less engagement. And then I just, like I said, I wasn't a fan of the kind of the O-ring design, relying on that to hold it in friction. So then I went to kind of the first version of my spring clip design, but the ABS is more brittle than say PLA, but it handles heat and UV exposure. And then because of the way this is 3D printed, the layers are going across the spring clips. So they're really brittle, and it doesn't take much to break them off, as you can see there. And that design, like I said, had to change. So what I've done here is gone to a two-piece design with the kind of the plug itself, and then a separate spring clip that is printed on its side, so the layers go the correct way for strength. And this is probably what I'm going to do. And having a separate size here, I can play with the spring tension to get it just right. And then, like I said, it'll lanyard it. That's just some residue that was on the 3D printer bed. I'm probably going to paint these red anyway, just to give them some additional UV protection. And then the air intake plug here is, like I said, just kind of a 3D printed drain stopper, and it'll have a nylon strap connecting the three of them. So when I park it on the ramp in the winter, I can keep that heat in the engine until, you know, I'm done eating breakfast or whatever, and then take off again. Anyway, I hope that's helpful if you have a Corvair-powered Zenith and you're looking for some inspiration on a winterization kit or, you know, some cowl plugs. So please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.